I'm pretty sure social media is fucked. The whole landscape is fucked. And we're on the verge of maybe even a collapse coming on. And in a year from now, you'll probably be like, yeah, we should have seen this coming. And I'm not talking about how AI videos are royally gonna fuck us over pretty soon, or not even smaller things that I usually talk about. For example, social media algorithm changes, hooks, I don't know, hashtags. No. I believe actually, my friends, in the coming year or two, the whole creator economy will get shaken like a Polaroid picture. By the way, you're not supposed to shake a Polaroid picture. And if you ask me, in the end, in a year or two, there won't be a lot of us left here, you know, content creators actually, as well as agency, as well as brands, especially if you're not aware what's about to come. And I believe this is gonna be the first big crash that we're gonna see this year or the next. Let me try to explain. If you remember, a couple of months ago, Meta basically announced paid social media, right? European users now have the option to pay 12 euros to access Instagram and Facebook ad-free. And I personally believe this was the starting point of the end of social media as we know it, right? Bear with me, because right now, probably not a lot of people are gonna opt in and pay, right? That's just the way it is. But I believe it's just gonna be a very slow burn, and slowly more and more people are gonna sign up for the ad-free version, which means that ads and ad revenue for creators eventually are just gonna have to crash. Because obviously the less people are gonna see ads, the more the ad rates will go up. And for businesses especially, who actually rely on ads and social media, things will become quite hard, especially the ones who don't have a lot of budget. You know, I'll tell you an example that I've seen in a second. Now, in the beginning stages of the internet, the major driving force and revenue factor were ads, obviously, right? Put in money, get back an X amount of money, perfect. Now, obviously, if that's not gonna be a thing anymore, actual content creators will become the most important revenue driving force on the internet. And, you know, as the internet's getting more and more important, probably in the world. And finally, brands will have to pay attention to who's actually a good creator with a good and honest audience and with good content and, you know, with a long-term plan, basically. There's one problem though, that they probably didn't anticipate. The other day I was talking to somebody working in a big influencer agency, and he told me actually that, first of all, ROAS, which means return on ad spend with influencer posts, is basically crashing already with lots of, you know, creators. He said that it's very hard to find mid-sized creators who cost between, let's say, 2 and 10K per post that actually give you a good return on your ad spend. Example, they told me that they just recently had a decent Instagram and TikTok influencer with good engagement, no fake followers, great content actually, and they paid him $10,000 for a sponsored video. And guess what they made back? $200. And he's telling me that this is not the only case. This happens time again and again. The other issue, which we're not going to get into, but actually we should get into it, is that also for bigger, actual super big influencers who ask for, I don't know, 100K per sponsored video or 200K per sponsored video, they are now getting to a point where they get so big that it's just not viable for brands to actually pay that much because of the amount of traction these super big creators have. So also for them, it's gonna get hard. Now, personally, I think there's even more factors coming into play. First of all, so much white noise, like I said, so much boring content, so much bad sponsored content, and people are just getting sick of these obnoxious, obvious sponsored posts, right? I could go on a whole rant about how to fix that because, for example, I stopped taking sponsors because most influencer agency managers are flat out stupid and they usually want to dictate how the creator's content needs to look. It's a whole multi-issue, right? In my opinion. Now, with that being said, as a result, just of this thing alone, and there's multiple more things, I'm pretty sure within the next year or two, we'll see most of these influencer agencies, for example, or social media marketing agencies, as well as a lot of mid-sized creators and even bigger creators having to downsize and stuff like this. They're gonna have to close shop or change strategies, who knows what, especially mid-sized creators. I'm sure we're gonna lose a lot of mid-sized creators. I would even say up until 1 million or 2 million followers. A lot of them are gonna have to quit because they just try to grow as fast as possible without spending a second of their time thinking on how to create a meaningful connection with people, overloading people with bullshit ads, stuff like this. Not thinking about the long-term potential of an actual personal brand, for example, which is huger, bigger than ever, which means the whole pie will be left for creators, actual creators who constantly improve their game and who actually do see the long-term value and vision of building an authentic audience. So there's one thing. There's a few more things that I believe are gonna come together in making this whole creator bubble burst. So one thing a lot of people are just obsessed with, for example, being in-platform monetization systems. Reels, I don't even know what they have at this point anymore, but YouTube ad revenue, for example. I've had my fair share of issues with YouTube ad revenue. We're gonna talk about this at some point, but I'm pretty sure these in-platform ad revenue split type of deals are going to be less and less important also for any type of creator, especially for the short form platforms. If you think about it, Instagram's been trying for years to make it somehow work, failed, at least up until right now. TikTok, by the way, just recently have basically announced that they're becoming a long form platform. They have sacked their creator fund, like Instagram, by the way, as well. Do we see a pattern here? And instead, right now, they'll have this new program where they only pay creators who create 1 minute to 30-minute long videos, ideally even in a horizontal format, but at least 1 minute long videos. Otherwise, you're not even eligible to get paid on TikTok, which basically, between the lines, just means we just don't know how to monetize short form content. Neither Instagram, neither TikTok. Also YouTube, but they don't have to because they have long form content. It seems like humanity hasn't figured it out how to create and make short form videos sustainable, which, by the way, does not at all mean you should stop creating short form videos. Quite the opposite, right? I've seen, especially in my creator mentorship, for example, people just recently starting, blowing up and making tons of money actually by having also sponsorships still. I'm not saying sponsorships as a whole are doomed. You just have to know and be more strategic with it. But also, for example, with affiliate marketing, also obviously with creating your own products. We soon have a big thing coming up where we help creators create and launch their first product to their audience with no bullshit, basically. But I'll tell you more about that at some other time. But let's talk about the next major issue. If we take a look at this whole social media history, basically, if we were to categorize it up until this year, maybe even the end of last year or something, we were in what I would consider a creator bull market, right? Or basically a creator bubble. And up until this point, let's say a year ago, platforms were actually not too saturated. Even though people were saying this, when I started on YouTube, everybody was like, yeah, YouTube is saturated. It was 2017 or something like this. But I would say up until a year and a half ago, platforms were actually not too saturated, especially in terms of content quality, editing, storytelling, and actual skills it takes to run a creator business successfully, not just creating content for the sake of creating content. Which is a whole nother topic. But over the past 2 years, there's actually been a huge influx of content creators on any platform, right? Not just Instagram, not just YouTube, basically everywhere. And actually that was a good thing if you ask me, because generally that whole thing meant growth for the platforms, a lively community, but also for creators and brands. So everybody was just happy. The whole thing was growing probably faster than it should have in some ways. Usually, whenever some sort of bubble starts to burst soon, you're going to see all these mainstream medias kind of talk about, whatever it is. Bitcoin, for example, Bitcoin, right before the latest Bitcoin crash, you could see a year before from then, mainstream media people were just talking about Bitcoin all the time. And then, this is basically the time where, probably we're getting close to somewhat of a crash. Same thing with social media influencers or creators. Now, recently, I believe it's gotten to a point where it's a little bit too saturated on any platform, right? Both with super high quality, amazing content, right? A lot of it there, way too much of it there, and especially with lots of other bad and mediocre content, especially that. And actually, just because there's so many new creators coming out with just bad content, or with just, people just trying to be a content creator, it's getting harder and harder to actually pierce through this whole cloud of white noise, basically, which is not even the main issue, by the way. It's just getting a little different. You just need to have a strategy to grow, right? We talk about this here quite a lot. But that's not the issue. The real issue, in my opinion, is that I see a lot of these newer, smaller creators basically looking for instant gratification, right? Getting lots of likes fast, lots of followers almost immediately, because they were primed by, first of all, TikTok and then Instagram. Anybody could just blow up basically with not a lot of effort. I go on TikTok, I start creating reels, and within 3 weeks, I have a reel go viral with 400,000 views. It's 3 million views. Awesome. Everybody looks at me, but did it really make an impact both for people watching it? Are they going to remember you, for example? But also for you, if you want to take this whole creator thing seriously and at some point want to live off of that. And recently I've been seeing this a lot. For example, around 3 weeks after the launch of Threads in Europe, which was a big thing, right? Lots of people started flooding to Threads. I saw this thread by a German creator who basically said something along the lines, I don't know if I still have the screenshot somewhere, but she basically said, well, Threads is not worth it at all anymore. 3 weeks after it launched, by the way. She said, the hype is over. I used to get 300 likes when it launched a week, 2 weeks before, or 3 weeks before, but now I barely get 50, right? I'm considering leaving. It's over. It's just not worth it to put my effort anymore after 3 weeks or 2 weeks of creating content with a new platform. Right? Another one I just recently saw saying that it's crazy how Instagram slowly programmed users to not want to post anymore because of the low reach that people get. And basically, the less reach people get, the less they want to post. That's their deduction of that. But what people just don't understand is that because people usually, because I've been working with tons of creators, usually something happens, right? Might be an actual engagement drop or something wrong with the algorithm, or you just posted at the wrong time because the Super Bowl was on and interests were just shifted somewhere else. You get pissed. You're like, well, I don't want to do this anymore. I start posting less because the effort, I'm worth so much more. My time is worth so much more. But why people actually get less and less reach is because they start posting less. This is basically getting into this whole downward spiral of doom, what I call it. Same thing with TikTok, by the way. Right? In the meantime, people are fleeing back over to Instagram. It's basically the same thing that happened to Instagram, let's say a year and a half ago. Everybody was like, let's go to TikTok. It's so much better. The grass is so much greener on the other side. But now it's the other way around. It's really funny for me to take a look at this sort of from an outside perspective. Apparently, TikTok's also lost its identity, wanting people to post suddenly long-form horizontal videos. And lots of their OG creators, actually, who blew up like crazy, just don't get any reach more. And they're like, well, what's the conclusion? Go over, don't adapt. Just please don't adapt. Let's just go somewhere where it's a little easier, seemingly in your mind, where I don't have to put so much effort in. Now, with that being said, if we take a look, and by the way, all major platforms here are at fault, but it's basically what I would call the short form curse or something like this, because this whole thing has given these new types of creators a false sense of what actually matters, being a creator, right? Being a content creator, an actual real content creator who lives off of it. I'll tell you an example from my life. Having been a creator for the better part of almost 7 years now, which is just crazy to think about. But for the better part of a year, I would say, here on YouTube, I've been in a downward spiral, what people would call, right? I didn't grow a lot within the last 12 months. My views certainly shrank quite a bit, and I don't see the numbers, the vanity metrics that I used to see before. Now, sometimes it feels bad, but do I give up? Right? What kind of question is that even? Why would I give up because of that? And that's the thing I've just seen times again and again, and I don't know why, but it seems like people are just not aware of the amount of effort it actually takes to build a real engaged following, right? To create good content and to even, basically to even figure out what resonates with your audience. Just that alone just takes a lot of time and a lot of trial and error and a lot of effort. Not saying it's bad, by the way. So, for example, for me, it took me years until anybody's ever noticed. First of all, my Instagram posts back in the days when I was trying to become an influencer, an Instagram influencer, right? We're not going to talk about it. But also then here on YouTube, when I started this channel right here, for almost a year, I was grinding it out after work, right? I was working at a law firm. From basically after work from 6 p.m. to midnight, I was scripting, filming, editing every day almost, only to get 7 views in the end. And I remember when I got 7 views or 7 subscribers.
There's been 7 of you already, which I like.
It was one of the best days of my life. And even more so, let me just tell you another thing. All the way back from when I started, I've seen other creators who started along with me in the same basically area, right? Same niche. I don't want to call it niche, but you know, this whole social media strategy, stuff like this. All of them got more views, more subscribers. They had viral videos. I never had them. And I was always the smaller one of them all, even though most of them started after me. Now, does it mean I'm bad, worse than them? Maybe, right? But this didn't keep me from trying to create the best content that I could. And for me, that was never even a question whether I was worse than them or whether I should stop being a creator. And I continued to do my thing because I knew I want to build something that makes an actual difference, right? That actually helps people and not just some inflated, fake, sort of quick cash grab, making content for the sake of content kind of thing. I knew it. I was in it for the long run. I don't care if I'm the one with the least amounts of traction, basically, in the whole area. Now, guess what? It's now 5, 6, maybe even 7 years later. And among all those people who started off with me, almost all of them, I actually think all of them are gone. And I'm the only one who's left, right? Not saying it's a good thing, by the way. Eventually, I guess everybody hits a rough patch. And a lot of people just rather quit than to do anything about it. That's just the way I see it. And in my opinion, that's the only way you will actually succeed as a creator, almost 100% guaranteed. Everybody that I know who started at some point, who had a goal, creating a social media channel, whatever that is, and sticking with it for years, right? Made it right now. Made it. If there's ever a thing called making it. So probably you already noticed this whole thing is becoming a little bit complex. And yeah, it seems like right now, almost every platform, even YouTube to an extent, has entered identity crisis mode. Not just Instagram anymore. As a result of that, I believe we're going to see a lot of basically forced experimentation with different content formats, new content formats, hopefully, right? Short form, in my opinion, for sure is going to become longer. I believe it's a smart move from TikTok in a way, thinking about the long term. But I also believe there will be multiple sweet spots also for very short form content, as well as for very long form content, as well as for medium style content. And I believe maybe this is going to be the differentiator between Reels and TikTok and Shorts and long form YouTube. Who knows? We'll see that. But, and that's the important thing, in my opinion, right now, don't forget that we're in this weird transitional phase where basically anything could happen. So you actually need to stay very attentive, adapt, be aware of what's happening, and don't be afraid to try anything new and try to switch up your content. That's another major issue that I see right now, why people become sort of fed up with social media, is that lots of creators are just afraid to change things up every once in a while because this worked, and you can't blame them. I'm basically the same thing. Everybody's the same thing. And this is also why you see seasoned creators basically on any platform lose steam here and there because people are just becoming bored of their content. And usually I would say this, but this is one thing that has always been true for me, at least personally, in my whole journey of life. Usually when everybody was going, let's say, left, I was going the opposite way and doing exactly the opposite. And I feel like right now it's maybe even beneficial if every once in a while you try to create things, do things totally different than what everybody else does in your niche, on your platform, just to keep things fresh. For example, just look at the corporate brand Ryanair. Corporate brands have a hard time on social media, especially lately. They're boring, really usually bad content because of, well, you know the reasons. But just take a look at what they're doing and they're crushing it. And why? Because not a single other brand has done similar things before, because it goes against every marketing principle, basically. Everything that people say, just don't do it, is basically what they're doing. And yeah, we can see it in front of our eyes. Seems like it does work. Now, here's the main part I truly want you to understand, my friends. Becoming a creator, acquiring the whole skill set that it actually takes to be a creator, whether it's scripting, writing, editing, camera presence, understanding psychological aspects of what makes people click or keep watching. Understanding all of that is the only viable long-term solution if you want to make it as a creator. And once you understand that, it doesn't matter that there's so much white noise out there and that competition is rising and there's so many new creators coming out, because to tell you the truth, because most people are just stupid and they're just not gonna bother with these things. They want to take the easy way, like we said before. Now, with all of that being said, the best way to get there is obviously by creating short form videos. So If you're not already doing that, start creating short videos, but please just don't throw random content against the wall and hoping it will stick. Instead, you want to approach this with somewhat at least of a strategy in your mind. And this video walks you through exactly the process how to grow on any platform basically right now.